Crowhill here. Today we review a lager and discuss nation building. Hello and welcome to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Good evening, Pigweed.
Good evening, Crowhill.
What's on your mind?
Tunisia.
Two knees, like having two knees? I have two knees.
Two knees. Now, is that where ancient Carthage?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
What would it be? Libya?
I think more in the Libya area, but I'm not positive though.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking about the Arab Spring and all of the promise that was about to come from that, and what I think we were all expecting the beginning of democracy throughout the Middle East. I mean, was that what was that? Was that last spring?
That wasn't last spring. That was like
that was 2011.
2011. Yeah, gosh, that was a little bit ago.
Yeah, that was the Twitter revolution, and I don't.
There was a lot of optimism around
yes,
then.
Because they didn't have the any fundamentalist Islamic
when was
clerics.
When was Fukuyama's end of history article? Remember that one?
Well, I was right at I was probably 89.
Oh no, much later than that.
It wasn't long after
Francis Fukuyama.
It wasn't long after the fall of the Berlin Wall. That was the impetus for the whole thing. It's like, all right,
okay.
The Cold War has been won. We know its system works.
Yeah.
Boopity boopity.
But
it was
now.
within. Yeah, I mean, say early 90s.
Okay. Yeah.
So yes. So I don't know what's going on in Tunisia.
Why didn't
now.
it work?
But
okay. Yeah.
I don't know. We've had some successes, but let me get my lips on this.
Yeah.
First.
So Aldus Brewing Company, Red Flannel Logger, not lager, L-A-G, logger, like somebody who chops down wood. And this kind of reminds me, this probably should be Matt Walsh's favorite beer. He's got a guy with a flannel shirt on the front.
And a full beard that every man should have.
Exactly,
so
but it's not a
But yeah,
not a black
I saw it and I'm like, it's it's wintry.
Yeah.
We had snow till about 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's a red flannel and a full beard.
All right.
And so we've reviewed amber ales very recently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's give it a try.
Amber what lager. Is that? Well, hold on, but how is an amber lager different than an amber ale?
Well, it's just fermented at a lower temperature, so it's a lager.
Right, so it's going to be the same grain bill. It's just going to use a different yeast at a different temperature.
Yes. Now, one thing I notice is that both of our glasses are not quite full,
and the floor is sticky.
And the floor is sticky because Aldus.
Sorry,
we haven't reviewed your beer yet, but we'll just have to say as a start. We opened the thing and it was a catastrophe. Beer went everywhere.
This was not shaken up. It's been sitting in.
It's been resting comfortably.
I don't care if even if the guys at the liquor store shook it up.
Yeah,
it's been here for 24 hours.
It's been there sitting in the refrigerator for quite a while.
And here's your chance to redeem yourself.
Exactly. Let's see if the flavor can redeem your bad carbonation.
Yeah, it's got
the right smell.
All the things you would expect from an amber. Mm-hmm. It's got a lovely copper color.
Yes. Nice copper color. All right, I like that. That's very drinkable.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's very nice.
Now, what if you had a similar grain bill, similar graininess, similar color, side by side with a red ale and a red lager? Would you be able to pick this one out as the lager?
That's always a hard question.
Yeah,
because generally speaking, lagers have a crisper flavor and ales have a fruitier, more wild flavor. But I'm not sure I can tell with this one.
No, because I think of lagers as having a cleaner finish.
Yes.
This has a kind of a sticky finish.
It does.
Which I like.
Yeah.
But I don't get anything particularly lagery out of it. I'd call this an amber ale. If I didn't know any better.
Exactly.
If I didn't see it on the can.
But it tastes good.
It wasn't all over the floor.
Yeah. But it's good. I mean, the flavor is good. So, Aldus, is this named after Aldous Dumbledore? Is that the... so it's good, but you got to work on why did it blow up. And you need to reimburse us for these beers, by the way. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I'm calling this the curse of the Marshall Plan.
Okay.
Because we, in fact, have a very sweet record of taking broken nations, Germany and Japan, are you listening?
Yes.
I'm talking about you, and turning them around,
Mm-hmm.
right? So nations that had embraced a sort of a ruthless, bellicose, pernicious ideology. So it wasn't just like one, it was permeated through the culture, this Japanese militarism and Nazism. Everybody was on board. And in short order, they embraced democratic liberalism, purged themselves of all of that, or did we? I don't know. And Germany becomes the economic powerhouse of Europe again, without all the murdering. And and Japan, the same thing. They become the...
We had great success with both Germany and Japan post-World War II. We rebuilt them, and they became, well, except for East Germany, of course, which the Russians had, but they became model states in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. It's like, we know how to do this.
Yes.
And then, like we said, but the Fukuyama, so then we're like, well, we're just waiting for this dumb wall to fall. It does. It's been declared the end of history. There's only one system that works.
Yes.
The human spirit is yearning to be free, and there's only one system that can give them what they want. And as these dictators around the world fall, they will be replaced by little Germanys and little Japans.
That was George W. Bush's.
And blue jeans and freedom and McDonald's.
Yes, that's exactly right. And no country with a McDonald's makes war on another country with a McDonald's.
Yes.
Until the Soviets invaded Ukraine. But
right. So we're like, all right, this has been working pretty good. Even South America lost most of its military dictators. We see how this works. What's going to be the thing that makes it break loose?
Right.
There was 9/11.
Right? And what we wanted to see was the same kind of yearning for freedom and democracy and mom and apple pie and everything all over the world. That's what we were hoping to see.
And there was a one sore spot called the Middle East.
Yeah.
But what?
Lots of sore spots, but the Middle East was like the biggest one. Yeah, big.
I mean, you're seeing the embracing of democracy and capitalism in all the continents. So much in the Middle East,
right?
But hey, what are you going to do? Well, 9/11, boom. So now it's time to turn. We can't let these idiots run Afghanistan.
Yeah,
and that war took like 3 months, and now we had the entire war machine ramped up. We already shipped all of our stuff over there.
We said maybe we should finish the job
while we're here.
Yeah, I think George W. wanted to. He had a little, something stuck in his craw about the way George H.W. was treated, and so he wanted to finish the job.
Right, which it made sense at the time not to march into Baghdad.
Yes, that's what they thought. Yeah,
I mean, it made sense in that we were able to bring the coalition together with the understanding that we were just going to liberate Kuwait.
Yeah,
and holding that coalition together to march all the way to Baghdad would have been a little tougher and whatever.
But then we had a better excuse for...
then we had the weapons of mass destruction and all of that. And so anyway, I'm not sure what happened there. But we could say this. All we have to do is get Saddam out of the way and then replace him with democracy, tolerance, capitalism, and human rights.
Because that's the heart. That's every heart
that's how it
yearns.
Works.
That's George Bush assured us of this. That every heart yearns for freedom and democracy and capitalism and McDonald's.
Once we, sling some constitutions out the window,
right?
Then it will flourish in Iraq and probably just spread through the entire Middle East.
Yeah. Yeah, because if you were just to show the guys in the Middle East some pictures of Adams and Jefferson and Monroe, and they would probably think, "Oh yeah, we relate to these guys."
We have a couple of those guys in the wing who are just like them, who want the same things.
They want the same things.
And we'll just call them into the room, and they can write up a sweet Arab version of your Constitution.
Yes.
And won't that be great?
Everything will be sweetness and light, and everybody will be happy, and history will be over, and we'll all be eating McDonald's.
Yes, yeah. I think, yes. And watching the Victoria's Secret special. Well. I
Didn't
think
quite work out that way.
We have seen the limits of nation building and the limits of, democracy. Which breaks my heart.
We skipped over one part of nation building, actually. Just occurred to me. We talked about Germany and Japan, and we talked about the Arab world. What about the nation building that Clinton tried to do in Eastern Europe? Remember with the wars that were going on over there with
the breakup of Yugoslavia?
Yeah, there's all kinds of,
Well, they made a bunch of nations that didn't used to exist. Well, that used to exist.
Yeah.
Then they didn't exist.
And we got ourselves involved in all these regional, nasty, ethnic conflicts.
Bosnia, Herzegovina, right. Too many syllables.
Yeah. Yeah, so there was the funny thing was, most Americans, when we're on board with the Marshall Plan, loved this idea that Japan was now a friend, Germany was now a friend. We got everything going in the right direction. But then when Bill Clinton was trying to do nation building in Eastern Europe, people kind of soured on it and said, "Why are we doing this? Why are we getting involved? These people have hated each other for centuries. Why are we getting involved in this?" And we didn't like what was going on there, and we didn't.
But these were ethnic regions that were forcibly held together. They never wanted to be in the same country. But when you've got the strong arm of commies and the backing of Big Brother Russia, you could keep something like that together.
Yes.
And so these people are like, wow, we just want the natural lines to be redrawn when Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, who else we have there? Macedonia.
Yeah.
Probably a couple more.
Sure.
So they just said, I guess in a way it kind of worked, right? They're like, all right, we just want these borders with our people and a little bit, and we all got to learn the term ethnic cleansing. So
that was lovely.
That was good.
Yes.
So would now Iraq, most countries are Sunni or Shiite.
Yeah.
Iraq is the only one that
had both of
is
them.
like 60-40.
Yeah.
And I can never... What's Iran? Are they the Shiites or are they the Sunnis? They're the Shiites, right?
Yes, I think so.
I think
so.
Yes. They are. And Iraq is majority Shiite, like 60-40. And Saddam was the 40.
Mm-hmm.
But not a particularly religious guy. And we're like... We should have paid more attention to that, maybe.
He was just a strong man trying to hold everything together, kind of like what was going on in Yugoslavia, where he had a strong man holding everything together. Yeah.
Right, but was there ever any, I guess what I'm getting at is, in the way that Yugoslavia broke up, was there ever any, like, hey, why don't we just do a Sunni Iraq and a Shiite Iraq and, well... Screw the Kurds, because nobody cares what they want, apparently.
I don't know if there was any effort in that direction. It's an interesting question, because...
Or would that have helped whatever,
Well, I know that a lot of people have criticized our involvement in the Middle East in that we never really quite understood the difference between Sunnis and Shiites. And if we had understood that, we would have done things differently than what we did. But we had this idea that we were going to go in, we were going to knock out the bad dictator, and then everybody was going to welcome us as liberators, I think George W. Bush said.
Yeah, that lasted for about 5 minutes.
Yeah. And then, once they welcomed us as liberators, they would all discover that the Constitution is wonderful and democracy and freedom would run rampant all over.
All right, well, you know what? This is a good point to jump back to World War II, because what we did not have is Japanese and German armed insurgencies trying to murder every American.
Right. Now, there were apparently in Germany, I don't know about Japan, but in Germany, there were still pockets of resistance that tried to fight against, but it wasn't a significant thing. It wasn't anywhere near as big a deal as what we had in Afghanistan and Iraq.
Right. I mean, like, now what? Fallujah? Why are we fighting in Fallujah? I thought this thing was over.
Yeah. Well, Afghanistan has centuries of experience fighting off invaders.
Yeah.
Remember, it was Reagan who gave Stinger missiles to the Mujahideen to fight against the Soviets.
To bin Laden himself.
You're the
good guy.
In Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So,
they fought against Alexander the Great.
Yeah, exactly. They fought against the British. They've been fighting invaders for quite a long time. So that's kind of part of their culture and their blood is that's what they do. So we come in, we think we're going to knock them down and impose democracy. It didn't work out like that.
You're right. We got rid of the Taliban that everybody said that they hated. Here's your country back. Here's 20 years. And in 20 years, you couldn't come up with an armed force to beat off the Taliban that we've been fighting for 20 years. You couldn't stop them for a week while we could pull our people out.
Yeah,
pitiful.
It was pitiful. I mean, obviously there was no will for a unified Afghanistan under some sort of a democratic rule, and there might be a lot of differences between the situation in Afghanistan and Iraq and the situation in Germany and Japan.
Like what? What was going on in Germany? What was different about the Germans and the Japanese that made this transition easier for us?
Yeah, so I think there's a bunch of things. One is Germany and Japan both had a history of centralized government. So they were used to the idea of having, Iraq and Afghanistan had these complex tribal, ethnic, and sectarian divisions that you really didn't have in Germany and Japan. Then you also had the situation where Germany and Japan were like rubble, Germany especially, but they'd been beaten. They knew they were beaten. It was a mess. It needed to be rebuilt.
But still with a history of industrialization.
Yes, exactly. With a history of industrialization, people who knew how to work in factories, so it was a place that needed to be rebuilt. They were beaten. They knew they were beaten, and we come in and we rebuild them. Where Iraq and Afghanistan, they kind of had this attitude of, no, you haven't beat us yet.
So this is what we do.
This is what we do. We fight you to the end, and that's the way it goes. The rebuilding of Germany and Japan happened in the context of the beginnings of the Cold War, right? The World War II is over. We end up being very quickly.
Russia is not withdrawing from the countries that it's moved into during World War II. That's a problem.
Yeah, so very quickly, it's basically the U.S. versus the Soviet Union. And this idea of we're more willing to spend a whole lot of money to make it work because it's in the context of this global conflict between the U.S. and the Soviet Union.
Okay.
We also had international support. All of Europe basically said, yeah, by all means, let's rebuild Germany. And then there was more buy-in from the population in the U.S. for rebuilding Germany and Japan. And they both had industrial bases that we could build upon. Iraq and Afghanistan didn't. So there are just a lot of structural differences between what was going on with Germany and Japan and what was going on with Iraq and Afghanistan.
Right. But there was also they learned some lessons from World War I in terms of reparations, beating down the Japanese leader. So they left the emperor in place.
Yeah, I never understood why they did that personally.
I think it was, to help maintain some continuity. And they're going, look, this is what we'll do. We'll blame it on the militarism of the militaristic leaders and not the emperor. And rather than, if you tear them down and then say you owe trillions of dollars to all of Asia, then you're back in the World War I situation, which is just setting the stage for problems in the future. So they just said, all right, how about this? We'll blame it on of course it was you, but we'll blame it on Hirohito, or was it
Hirohito was one of them.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll blame it on those guys.
Military leaders. It's all their fault.
We'll just start from scratch. How about a democracy? All right, that sounds pretty good. So
the Japanese actually adopted a lot of American things very quickly, and it's actually kind of amazing. My father was stationed in Japan during the Korean War. And, Americans were respected. And, is very different.
Hirohito was the emperor. Tojo.
Sorry. Yes.
Right?
Hirohito. You're right. Hirohito was the emperor, and then you had Tojo was one of the military.
Was the naval.
Yeah, but there were a couple other ones that aren't coming to mind. I need to rewatch some of my World War II.
Right, but how come I didn't have a cool name like the Marshall Plan? Why wasn't it called the MacArthur Plan?
Yeah,
but it was. But this whole thing was overseen by MacArthur.
Yes, MacArthur was the guy who ran things in Japan for quite a long time.
So I guess really what we're saying is, I understand that optimism based on our track record.
Yeah.
Based on the conditions on the ground. It's not like I'm not pretending that, everybody should have known. And these are pretty smart guys, and history is what it is. And conditions are what they are. And 2020, you're like, I guess that was a little too optimistic. But that's unfortunate because it was more fun to think that, we could all have an entire world of peace and liberal democracy, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen.
No, and,
which is a bummer.
Yes. I think part of the problem is people don't appreciate how different other places in the world are. You grow up in America and you go to American universities, you don't realize how differently people in other parts of the world think about things. For us, basically, a peaceful life and middle class existence and that's great. Other people, they value other things way more than that.
Right. Can you imagine growing up in Chechnya or something like right? Where most places, Middle East, where violence and warfare is just part of
where people in the Middle East raise their children to be martyrs. It's like totally that we don't think that way.
You're right.
Right. You have people over there.
Right. You actually embrace the idea of your child dying before you for some cause of whatever sort.
It reminds me of a little bit.
Religious cause.
Just popped into my head. How long has it been since you've seen the Disney Peter Pan movie?
Probably been a while.
It's been a little while, yeah. So I remember at one point, the boys are captured, and Wendy is back, and she's giving her last encouragement to the boys, and she says, "I hope you die like British gentlemen." I'm thinking, that's a little rough, but that kind of an attitude that people would raise their children. Yes, I want you to die as in a suicide bombing or some other kind of thing.
Right. Well, they're gonna name a street after you, after my son, who bravely blew himself up in nursery school in Israel.
We don't deal with that kind of craziness in America. I'm not sure Fukuyama and these other guys had that in mind.
Maybe the idea that a movieplex and a Starbucks was going to change things is maybe a little naive.
Well, it certainly didn't work in China. We thought that if China just had success, if they had capitalism, if they had money, if they had McDonald's, that it would somehow change China. That didn't happen.
Yes, I think, and I get it. I think the idea was economic freedom is going to bleed over into other types of freedom. Like once you get a taste of being able to make your own business decisions, well, gosh, you're going to want to be making other decisions that the government is currently not letting you make, and we'll just watch this whole thing. And somehow they have managed to industrialize without freedom.
Yes. And I think that's been a blind spot in the West. We thought that these two things went hand in hand, but they don't necessarily, because maybe we need to talk about that guy. There's other.
Yeah, so one of the factors, wasn't long ago, we did a show on John Adams.
Yes.
But the show was built on a singular quote. I don't have it in front of me, but something along the lines.
So the quote was, "Our government is only works for a religious and moral people. It's not suited for any other." Right.
Right. And so if you don't have people with a certain worldview and a certain mindset, then this fragile government, which relies on self-restraint and emphasizes freedom, is not going to work. And so without sort of diagnosing if these nations that we're trying to build have those kinds of people.
Yeah.
Well, that's really a pretty big deal.
So here's another thing I've been wondering about recently that might fit in here is what is it that makes a country a country?
You know, about borders.
Okay, sure.
All
but
right.
but you have to have something that holds the society together.
Yeah.
Right? You have to have some unifying factor. It might be religion, it might be ethnicity, it might something. Now in the United States, what's supposed to be holding us together are the ideals in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. You know, all men are created equal. They're endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, well, all that kind of stuff. So we have this vision of what makes America. In a lot of these other countries, like in Afghanistan and Iraq, you don't really have a uniting vision like that because, as you said, you have Sunnis and Shiites, you have all these tribal differences.
Right. Exactly. Beyond the religious schism is the tribalism.
Yes.
And you are Saddam Hussein was a Tikriti more than he was an Iraqi. Yeah. And everybody kind of thinks that way. And then whoever is in power, remember what was the Equatorial Guinea guy, right? He was a Fang, whatever that tribe was. And so all the government jobs go to all the Fangs.
Yeah.
And, without a greater sense of what is best for the nation, these, the Germanys and Japans were...
They had a unified sense of who they were. The Germans had a sense of being Germans, and the Japanese had a sense of being Japanese. And that held them together in a certain way that you don't see in other areas. Like what we were talking about in the former Yugoslavia. You had all these groups that didn't feel like they belonged in some greater collective.
Yes, they didn't. Right. These people did. The Bosnians did not think of themselves as Yugoslavians.
Right.
They were just Bosnians.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have that kind of a problem. And just saying we're going to give you capitalism and freedom and democracy and you're going to get to vote, woohoo, and you're going to have a McDonald's.
Look, you dummies, how great it's going to be.
Yeah. That doesn't overrule all these other things that are
ethnic tensions and tribal resentments and things that go back generations.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, not everybody gets Jeffersons and Adamses to create awesome countries.
That's right. But in America, there was this common idea that we're here for the purpose of freedom. We're here for the purpose of being able to live our own lives unconstrained. There was somewhat of a unifying factor.
Yes.
And they don't have that in these other places. And the idea that we're just going to go in and say, oh, now you can vote, you're going to be lovely.
No. So that's a shame because optimism is a good thing. But no, I don't think there's any reason to be optimistic that we're going to be able to nation build. However, maybe it's a lesson learned, and maybe we'll just stop sticking our noses in things and we'll just go with the occasional inexpensive CIA operative to take down a person or two that we don't like, and rather than these full-scale invasions and breaking things and rebuilding them. Maybe that's the good thing.
It's kind of arrogant to think that we can just go in and break everything and rebuild it in our image and somehow that's going to work.
Yeah. But like I said, the curse of the Marshall Plan, we have a history of it working.
Yes.
So, there was a little bit of reason to be confident. So, but there's no reason to look forward that way. So, there we go.
All right.
So,
I've got a short man of the week.
All right.
Okay. So I was thinking about this the other day. I'm working in my office and I see the people walking their dogs and I see the trash trucks go by. And I'm going to say...
Hold on. So you've got a story about a trash man who saved a kitten or something like that? Is that your man of the week? Is like a story... A recent news item?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying the trash man.
Oh, the trash man.
Because he's got a job.
Ah.
He works hard.
Yes.
It's dangerous work. A lot of people don't realize how dangerous it is to be a trash man. For one thing, you're riding along on the back of a truck. You can fall off.
Yeah.
But also...
But it looks cool, though.
It does. It does. And it seems kind of like liberating and free. And also, when you're putting stuff in there and it's getting crushed, you don't know what's going to spray back at you. You don't know what's going to break. Apparently, there's a lot of injuries that
Yeah, some people throwing, maybe there's some spray cans.
Yeah, a bucket of bleach in there, some kind of horrible thing. It's a public service. And it's the thing that's amazing about it to me is I don't have a lot of interaction with the trash man, but every once in a while I go out and I chat with them. They're always pleasant, nice people.
Yeah, and they direct traffic.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're always making sure that the guy's coming around, this guy's not coming through.
Yeah.
I think I wish as a young man I had a summer job.
Exactly. Wouldn't it be nice
Yes.
for people to do some sort of work like that?
Yeah.
As just to get a sense of this is what it means to work, to do a dirty job.
Back when I had a strong back and there's all of the lifting, the riding on the back, which looks cool. You're going into neighborhoods that you would never, ever, ever, ever go through. Like,
Yes.
I don't even know the neighborhoods, all the streets in my own neighborhood, because I just go to the ones that get me in and out to go to work. So here you go to all the places you need a shower when you get home, I'm sure.
Yes, of course.
It's a smelly job.
Yeah.
But it's the most necessary.
It's necessary. It's good, honest work, and I think they don't get enough recognition.
And you know what? I feel bad that I gave my mailman a Christmas present, but I didn't give anything to my trash man.
Same to me. I every year.
I mean, really, I value that guy a little bit more.
Yeah, every year I give the postman a homebrew for Christmas. I give him one of my Christmas beers.
I gave mine a Dunkin' Donuts card.
There you go.
Well, why couldn't I have done that for
the trash man? All right. Well, that's next year.
So, to learning the lessons of nation building and trash men.
And trash men. Thanks so much for listening to Beer and Conversation with Pigweed and Crowhill. Remember to visit us at pigweedandcrowhill.com or send us an email at pigweedshow@gmail.com.